Today's short session is called Mat for Spine Health. So we're going to run through a few exercises that we do often in class. We're going to focus on finding the position for the exercise. So you'll be familiar with the majority of the exercises, and we just want to look at honing our expertise in these positions. They're great exercises for helping to strengthen backs and core, and generally are very kind on the spine, so nothing too strenuous. So let's get started. We're going to start in side lying today. So if you have a cushion or a couple of blocks, you're going to place those underneath your head. And you can use a flexball, or you could just use your hands. You really don't have to have a flexball to do this movement. So we're going to lie onto our sides. Now, when we lie on our sides, generally you want to make sure that your shoulders and your hips are in a nice straight line. We often end up with our bottom back behind us, so let's just make sure we're in a nice straight line today. And hands are in line with your chest rather than right up high. So just bring them in line with your chest so that your shoulders can be nice and relaxed. And keep the knees just gently pressing down and the hips stacked one on top of the other. And let's just now roll the ball forward and let that shoulder blade just glide from the centre of the spine. And then we're going to draw the shoulder blade back and we're going to rotate back very slightly. So slightly different than we often do. Just a little bit more movement there. Keep the elbow relatively straight so you can focus the movement on what the shoulder blade is doing. And essentially, the flat shoulder blade, if you imagine it in your mind's eye, is just gliding across the back of the rib cage there as we reach forward and then we rotate back. And we reach forward and rotate back. So my hips are still, my legs are still. It's just that upper torso, just gently rotating there. And then we can add on. We reach forward, we roll back, and then we start to draw the elbow back and rotate and open our chest a little bit, but the hips are still facing forwards. And then you can roll the ball down your arm and roll forwards and back again, rolling the ball, elbow coming out to the side. And if you find the ball is just a bit of a distraction, then just use the hands. Reach forward, roll back slightly, thinking about the torso, drawing the elbow back, eyes looking upwards, so your head is just rolling with you. Really nice and relaxed, drawing the elbow back, and then maybe add on. Now start to extend the arm, and then coming back and through. So that lovely gliding movement through the shoulder blade there as we open the chest to the ceiling. So, as I've often said about this exercise, it is not so much about how far back your arm goes, it's the rotation in the torso that we're looking for. Keeping the hips and the knees gently pressing down so that we can focus on that rotation into that side of the body. Lovely. Okay, right, from there we're going to take ourselves obviously to the opposite side. So bring yourself around to the opposite end of your mat. Again, with or without your ball. Knees bent up. Hips and shoulders in a nice straight line, and just begin by just reaching that top hand and sliding the shoulder blade away, and then drawing the shoulder blade back and slightly beginning that rotation, reaching forwards and rolling back and reaching forwards and rotating back. And just gradually working on that movement, a bit like a rusty lock, just trying to ease that movement through your spine as you roll backwards and forwards. Maybe start drawing the elbow back and increasing that rotation, making sure that your head is nice and relaxed and it is rolling with you as you do that. And we reach And we draw the elbow back and we rotate. And maybe next time we'll add the arm as we reach and we draw the elbow back, we rotate and maybe extending that arm out. And then bringing it back and taking it through. Let's just do a few more here. Drawing the elbow back, opening the chest, reaching, keeping the knees pressing down and the hips stacked one on top of the other there. And draw back. If you feel any pressure at all into your lower back, maybe pull your tummy muscles in a little bit. That might help you there. But obviously you don't really want to feel discomfort into the lower back. So if it isn't the exercise for you, maybe just make your rotation a little bit smaller and restrict it to where I am here. So just trying different things to get the movement without causing any stress to the body. Okay, right, from here we'll bring ourselves into 4-point kneeling. We're going to grab our flexball and we're going to pop it in between the knees just to focus on that inner thigh connection in this position. So often with 4-point kneeling, we're so busy trying to follow the exercise, we forget about the positioning of our spine. So the hands are underneath the shoulders, okay? But you can have them wider, you can have them forward a little bit, wherever is more comfortable for you. We spread our fingers and instead of just taking the weight into the heel of the hands, we take the weight through the whole of the hand there. And remember, if you have wrist issues, you can roll up your mat or grab a towel and place it underneath the heel of the hand to open up the front of the wrist a little bit. Or alternatively, you can go up onto your fists. That is always an option in that position. Okay, so think about the shoulder blades. Now, I often see this position in class, but let's try and relax that upper mid-back, the spine itself, and relax it down in between the shoulder blades. See how my shoulder blades are gliding to the centre of my spine. And then as I push the floor away, my shoulder blades slide away. And then I release down again. And I push away. Now, at no point during this time am I actually allowing my spine to round. The movement is a bit like two sliding doors. Imagine your shoulder blades are like two sliding doors in there, just gliding backwards and forwards, but my spine is staying the same. Keeping it relaxed down in between the shoulder blades. And it's really tempting as you push away from the floor to round into the spine. But try to avoid that and find now that midpoint. Another thing I often see is the head hanging forward like this, which causes a lot of stress to the back of the neck. So let's just lift the head so the back of the neck is in line with the rest of the spine. Think about maybe drawing the chin back and lengthening the back of the neck. And by saying that, I don't mean lift your chin so you end up arching the neck and looking upwards. I mean that drawing back of the chin from the floor. And as you do that, feeling that length in the back of the neck. Tailbone is pushing up slightly. And we're also making sure we keep the connection of the front of the ribs upwards towards the middle of the spine. Often I see this in class, and so we just want to try and keep the lift in the middle of the body, particularly as we go to move our arms and legs away from the centre. So from here, we'll just start with the arms, and I just want you to take one arm forward. Now you may not be able to lift the arm too high without the hunching in the shoulders, so just limit your range. Feel that your shoulders are level, maybe rotate the thumb upwards, which might give you more range, and then bring it back down. And to the opposite side, take the arm, only taking it as high as you can without any movement in your shoulder girdle, which wants to be nice and level as you move your arms. Often we get a dipping of the shoulder to just really paying attention to keeping those shoulders level as we alternate. Keep the connection of the ball in between the knees there, tailbone pushing up, ribs supporting underneath as we move our arms. coming back to centre now, let's go to the legs. So even though I'm now going to take the ball away from in between the thighs, I still want you to think about that inner thigh connection. Now again here, it's very tempting to allow seesawing through the hips. So let's try and slide the leg long along the floor, and then we only lift the thigh as high as we can without there being any change in the level of our hips. And then we bring it back into centre. It's really tempting to want to transfer the weight onto the opposite knee, and let's see if we can stay as level as we can as we slide that leg back and away from us. Keeping those hips level, and we just alternate. As you extend that leg, make sure you're holding the lift of the centre of the body, of the rib cage. So there are quite a lot of things to think about in this exercise, and it can be difficult to get them all in place in class. So this class just offers the opportunity to really work on your positioning here and get the maximum benefit for your spine as you work in this position. Now let's add on our opposite arm and leg. So to do this, I would always begin by sliding the hand and the leg along the mat and then lifting it up, focusing on staying lifting in the centre of the body, but also that pressing away from the floor with that hand that's supporting you, and then come back in to centre. So let's just try a few of those now. So sliding the arm and leg along the mat, and then only lifting the hand and the foot and the leg as much as you can while you maintain your position with your spine, and then coming back into centre. And again, we slide away and back into centre. Now this time, as we slide away, let's hold it. Float your arm and leg up. Really focus on your position for a few breaths here. Inhaling, maybe as you exhale, using it to lift the ribs slightly from underneath so we're not dipping in the centre of the body, and just focus on what's happening there. And then come back into centre, and let's do the opposite side. Slide the hand and leg along the floor. Maybe use that exhale now to lift the arm and leg up, and also lift the ribs slightly if you find you're dipping in the centre of the body. Push away from the floor, spread the weight through your hands, and then come back into centre. Let's just push our bottom back onto our heels there, stretching back, pressing the chest down towards the floor. We're going to come into extension now. So we're going to lie onto our front, pop your block underneath your head. Now, if you do have disc issues or anything like that, extension is actually a really nice thing to do on your spine. If you have something called facet joint irritation, it may not work so well. So please try it and see how it works for you. But what's really important here is that we lift those abdominals, that we feel that pubic bone connection, and as you lift your abdominals, you always feel like your buttocks are drawing downwards towards your feet, and that will create that lift from the underneath of the body to create space here in the lower back and support yourself. So we just start with our breaststroke 1 that we often use, just focusing on extra pointers here. We are going to lift, and remember we lift from the chest, and then the head follows, drawing the chin back to lengthen the back of the neck, and then just gently looking forwards. Feel like your elbows are pulling back towards your hips, and as you do that, pressing the spine forwards to create more extension, and then release, and down, and again. Exhale, get that connection through your pubic bone. Lifting the chest and head, glide the elbows backwards, feel the spine pressing forward and creating width across the front of your shoulders as you do that. And release. And down. And again, inhale. Exhale, connect with your abdominals, pubic bone connection. Elbows pulling back, we lengthen through the crown of the head. The spine presses forward, and we keep the base of our rib cage pressing down into the floor, and feel whether or not you're equal on both sides.
just checking in to see whether or not you have a tendency to rotate to one side at all. Find your balance. So this time we add on the chest lifts. We lengthen the crown of the head away, hold, and then maybe float either just the palm of your hand or the whole of the hand and forearm away from the floor. And release them down. So that's adding on some challenge to those upper back extensors there. Again, we lift, we glide the shoulders away from the ears, and we drag those elbows backwards. We open the front of the shoulders. Pubic bone connection now, a little bit more strongly as we float our forearms away from the floor. And release. And back down. Let's add on here. Now, we can either do a double leg extension where we lift both thighs from the floor. If you find that's a little bit too challenging for that connection on the underside of the body here and that maintaining your back position, then you can begin just having the toes tucked under. And then as you exhale, pubic bone connection, lift the thighs and stretch into your heels. And that will challenge your connection here, hopefully without putting any undue pressure on the lower back. And then we release the knees back down to the floor. So there's that option, or if you are slightly stronger and able to support it, we stretch the legs away, we find our pubic bone connection, and we lift those both thighs away from the floor, keeping the shoulders as relaxed as you can. Stretch long so the leg lifts fully without bending at the knee, and then release them down. So choose your option there as you go to lift, either pressing into the heels and lifting the thighs, connecting with your abdominals, or exhaling and extending the whole thigh away from the floor. And I'm just going to do 2 more of each variation. I stretch into my heels and I lift those thighs. I support with my abdominals underneath. And then I repeat. Exhaling, supporting from underneath, stretching into the heels. Upper body nice and relaxed here, trying to keep the rest of the body as if it's not really doing anything. And then release. And then maybe add on that double leg extension. Lifting those abdominals maybe slightly more strongly this time, so as you float your thighs, the upper body is still relaxed. And release. One more time, stretching into those legs, reaching long. Hold. And release. And now let's combine both of those together. Each time, be mindful if this is an exercise for you. Feel what's happening in your body. Lift your abdominals. Feel that support into that lower back area now as we lift our chest and head. We float both arms off of the floor. We stretch into those legs and we either do the first variation or the double leg lift variation, but find what works for you. And then release everything back down. Just 2 more times. Inhale. Begin your exhale, feel your connection to your abdominals as you lift them away from the mat. And then we press into the elbows and hands. We lift. We float, if that's the correct thing for us. Dragging those elbows back, we lift those thighs away, or we tuck the toes under and just lift just the knees. And release. And down 1 more time. Lift those abdominals. Slide the shoulders away from the ears. Lift your chest and head. Lengthen that crown of the head away. We float our arms. We float our thighs. The base of the ribcage is still on the mat. No pressure into the lower back here. And release. And back down to the floor. And again, just there to bend our spines back the opposite way now. We take our bottom back towards our heels, stretching backwards. And let's do a cat now to just mitigate the extension that we've just done and return our spine to a more neutral position. So we inhale. Remember, we always begin our cat by tucking the tailbone under. We lift the front of the ribs towards the back of the body. We let our head hang down in between our arms. Inhale. We exhale. The tailbone lifts first. We slide the shoulder blades away from the ears. You don't completely use the ribs here. We keep the connection and we lengthen out through the crown of the head. Inhale again. Begin with the tailbone tucking under. Think about the front of the ribs lifting to the back of the body. Push the whole of the hand into the floor and really let your head hang heavy in between your arms. Inhale. Exhale. Reverse it. The tailbone starts to lift up so the pelvis is moving. Then we move to the middle of the spine. We keep the ribs connected. We slide the shoulder blades away from the ears and that upper mid back is down between the shoulder blades. Lengthen out through the crown of the head. One last time. Inhale. Exhale to begin tucking the tailbone under. Begin lifting the abdominals up towards the spine, pushing the ground away as we round our spine upwards. Really let that head and neck relax. Inhale. We exhale to lift the tailbone, roll through the spine, slide the shoulders away from the ears, and we lengthen out. Lovely. Okay, pressing back towards your heels if it's comfortable, scooping those abdominals, rolling up through the spine. And you can roll up into high kneeling or you can stay seated on your heels. Okay, we're going to finish with a little bit of hip rolls just to relax the spine and finish off our movements. So come into lying on your back, have the ball in between the knees, hands just down by your side. From here we inhale wide and full. As you exhale, begin to tip your pelvis. Remember that lower back rolling into the mat first, then continue to roll your spine. So think about the articulation by drawing your tummy muscles back more to create curve in the spine before we come up into our bridge position. Remember, the ribs are soft in the sense that they're in a nice horizontal line with your hip bones rather than lifting up high to the ceiling. Keep your shoulders open and wide into the floor. We inhale. And as you exhale, begin to drop down. Maybe hold it just there. Inhale again. Exhale, pull your tummy muscles in further and think about that next vertebra coming down. Hold it again. Inhale wide and full. Exhale, drop a little bit further. Think about that mid-back of the waist starting to come down. And then finally release your tailbone back down to the floor. So let's do that just 2 more times. Inhale. Exhale. Tip your pelvis, lower back rolling, and think about the articulation of one vertebra after the other as we roll up. Stretch your fingertips towards your feet and widen the front of the shoulders. Inhale. Then begin your exhale and start to roll down and just stop when the back of the ribs start to hit the mat. Inhale again. Think about the articulation of the next bit of the spine down onto the mat. Hold it there. Inhale. Exhale, and the next bit rolls down. The lower back starts to come into the mat. And then finally we release our tailbone and our buttock muscles down to the mat one last time. Inhale. Exhale, begin with the pelvic tilt. The lower back flattens into the floor as we draw our abdominals backward towards our spine. We continue to roll our spine away up from the floor. Shoulders pressing wide. Inhale. As you exhale, keep your shoulders wide now and start to drop the back of your rib cage down onto the mat. Hold it there. Inhale again. As you exhale, draw the back of the ribs again down towards the mat further, and then the spine starts to articulate. Inhale. Exhale, get that lower back to roll into the mat, and then finally release the tailbone down.
keeping those shoulders nice and wide into the floor. Okay, roll to the side, come up into seated, and I hope you enjoyed that run through of some essential exercises that are fabulous for back health, but just working on those finer points to create a better exercise.